For a while, I was talking to this girl named Torai, and I was really into her. Things eventually fizzled out, but back then we talked every single night. Usually it was just phone calls, sometimes FaceTime. This all happened last July. There was a brutal heat wave going on. One night, I was in the middle of playing FIFA with my friend Carl when my phone started ringing. Right on schedule, it was Torai. By that point, I had gotten used to her calling around 9 every night. I told Carl we would finish the second half later and to leave his console on. Then I answered and started talking to her. She lived about 20 minutes away, and it was a work night. When she asked if I could come over, I told her I wanted to, but I would come by the next day instead. She mentioned that her parents had been gone all day, and she had no idea where they were. Her parents were kind of different. They were not neglectful, just extremely laid back. They let Torai do pretty much whatever she wanted, and rarely questioned where she was. They also went out several nights a week to restaurants, bars, or comedy shows. Sometimes they would not come home at all. This was one of those nights. We were just talking about random stuff, complaining about school and work the next day, nothing important. After a while, she said she was going to cook some pasta and would call me back when she was done. While she was in the kitchen, I told Carl to jump back on FIFA, and we finished our game. When the match ended, I expected Torai to call at any second. She did not. Not for a while. I tried to FaceTime her. The first attempt failed. 5 minutes later, I tried again, and this time she answered. She was in her living room walking upstairs. As soon as she picked up, she told me she was confused. I asked her what was wrong. She said when she went downstairs earlier to start cooking, the front door had been wide open. Her dad's car was not in the driveway, so her parents were definitely not home. She kept joking that someone must be inside and was going to kill her. I laughed and played along, telling her she was probably right. She told me to stop messing with her. She went back to her bedroom and laid down on her bed. About a minute later, she suddenly remembered she left the pasta boiling and ran downstairs again, leaving her phone on the bed. The screen was facing down, and the camera pointed up at the ceiling. All I could see was her white ceiling and the colorful shapes moving around from her little light projector. From downstairs, I heard her yelling in frustration, probably about the pasta being overcooked. But mixed in with that, I heard another sound. It seemed like it came from inside her bedroom. I stared at the screen, suddenly alert. Then I saw it. For just a split second, half of a man's face appeared in the frame. He looked straight into the camera. It felt like we locked eyes for a moment, and he vanished. I froze. I did not know what to do. I did not have her house phone number. I could not yell to warn her without risking something happening. My TV was still on in the background playing the FIFA menu music, so whoever that was probably knew someone was on the call. I started panicking. Without hanging up, I ran to grab my house phone and dialed 911. I gave them Torai's address and told them there was an intruder inside. I said I could not talk long because I was still on FaceTime with her. I brought the house phone back to my room and picked up my iPhone again. Right around then, Torai came back into her room carrying a steaming bowl of pasta. She sounded completely calm, apologizing for taking so long. I felt sick. That man could have been hiding anywhere. In her closet, under her bed, standing just out of sight. I wanted to scream at her to run, but if he was still there, that could have set him off. I tried to keep her talking while the police listened in. The 911 operator told me I needed to find a way to get her outside without alerting the intruder. I had no idea how I was supposed to do that. If I warned her directly, she would panic. So I made something up. I told her to go outside because Carl was in her driveway with her backpack. She had actually left her backpack at my house earlier, and I pretended Carl was dropping it off. It worked. She looked confused, but she slipped on her sandals and went outside. The second she stepped out the front door, I shouted at her to run to her neighbor's house immediately because someone was inside. She started crying right away. She ran next door and banged on the door until her neighbor answered. I left my house and drove over as fast as I could. By the time I got there, police cars were outside and officers were searching her house. There was no happy ending to that part. The intruder had already escaped before the police arrived. He must have realized help was coming. That night, we locked every door and window, and she stayed at my place. About a month later, we stopped talking. She ended up finding another guy. You would think after something like that, we would have started dating right away. That never happened. Recently, we have been on friendly terms again, but it is not the same. What still bothers me is the thought that he could have been hiding in her room the whole time, listening to our conversation. I still wish I had taken a screenshot when his face appeared on the screen. My best friend Casey and I usually spend our weekends together. We are practically attached at the hip. But one weekend I came down with COVID, so I had to stay home. She still went out with our other friends, Connie and Rachel. They ended up going to this beachside outdoor bar I had always wanted to try but never got around to visiting. I will admit, I was annoyed and a little jealous. Because of that, I was being kind of short with Casey and the others. I was not replying with much enthusiasm. I spent the night stuck in my bed watching dumb movies, sneezing nonstop, and feeling absolutely miserable. At some point, I grabbed my phone and noticed that Connie and Rachel had flooded our group chat. They were asking where Casey was, and then asking me if she had messaged me privately. I checked our texts. The only message from Casey was the last one I had ignored earlier. Nothing new. I sent her a quick, "Hey, are you okay?" It delivered, which meant her phone was still on. That was something at least. The girls told me the last time they saw Casey, she was talking to some guy at the bar. When they went back to find her later, both she and the guy were gone. I told them to relax and that she was probably still with him. But deep down I knew it was not like Casey to leave with a random guy without saying something first, unless she was extremely drunk. I tried FaceTiming her. Someone answered, but it was not Casey. It was not really anyone. The screen showed a dark room. Whoever picked up was clearly staying out of view. "Hello?" I said. "Where is Casey?" I kept asking until the call suddenly ended. I started calling her over and over, texting nonstop, demanding to know where she was and who had her phone. Then her number started FaceTiming me. I answered immediately. This time, there was a man whispering on the other end. He said Casey was fine. He claimed she had gone home with him and was passed out in his bed. I asked him who he was. He said they met at the bar. I pressed him, asking which bar, and he named the correct one. His story lined up so far. Still, I asked why he would not show his face and why he was whispering like that. He said it was too dark in the room and that Casey was asleep and he did not want to wake her. The darkness excuse made no sense. I told him to turn on a light and prove she was okay. There was a long pause. Then the call disconnected. I told Connie and Rachel everything. They were just as freaked out as I was. After more calls and texts, the man finally sent an address and said, "We are here. Come pick up your friend." The address was a small house about 15 minutes away. By that point, the girls had stepped outside the bar so they could talk to me properly. They agreed something felt wrong and said I should not go to that house. That was when I remembered I still had Casey's mom's number saved somewhere in my phone. After digging through my contacts, I found it. I texted her and then called. She answered and told me Casey was already home. She had been there for about 30 minutes, crying but refusing to explain what had happened. I felt my stomach drop. I FaceTimed Casey's phone one more time. Again, it connected to that same dark room. I said hello several times. No answer. so I decided to test him. I said I am on my way. A whisper came from off-screen. Good. Do not knock. Just come right in. At confirmed it. I told him I knew he was not with Casey and that I was calling the police. What happened next still makes my skin crawl. In one quick motion, the phone was grabbed and his face filled the screen. He had this twisted, exaggerated grin stretched across his face, his eyes opened as wide as possible. It looked like he was deliberately trying to appear as terrifying as he could. I ended the call immediately because I could not stand looking at him. Later, we found out what had actually happened. Casey had left the bar with the guy she met, and they got into what she believed was an Uber. But the driver and the guy were behaving strangely. She realized they seemed to know each other. Thinking it might be some kind of setup, she got out of the car at the first opportunity. By then, her phone was gone. She borrowed a stranger's phone to call her mom to come get her. Casey and her mom contacted the police, and I met them near the address that had been sent to me. I stayed at a distance so I would not get anyone sick. According to Find My iPhone, Casey's phone was indeed at that exact house. The police knocked, but no one answered. There was not much they could do that night. They suggested calling again in the morning and trying once more. The next day, they returned. An older man answered the door. He insisted he did not have anyone's phone. He said no young men lived there and claimed he knew nothing about any of it. Casey thought he might have been the driver from the car, but she could not be certain. After that, the trail went cold. Casey's phone stayed off, and its location never updated again. Do we know she narrowly avoided something terrible? Absolutely. Do we have any idea what that something was? Not at all. One night in January, during a heavy snowstorm, I was home alone with my younger brother. Both of my parents were out of town. My brother was in his room doing his own thing, while I was upstairs playing League of Legends on my computer. At some point, he knocked on my door and asked if I could drive him to a friend's house. I agreed, mostly because I drive a Pathfinder that handles snow and ice pretty well. His friend only lives about 5 minutes away, so it was not a big deal. We left, I dropped him off, and I was back home within 15 minutes. When I walked inside, the house was just as I had left it, quiet and empty. I went back upstairs and started playing League again. I FaceTimed my friend Jay, who was also in a game. I had a habit of propping my phone up against my monitor so he could see me and I could see him while we played. We did that for about an hour or two. Then I heard a noise from downstairs. I assumed my brother had gotten a ride back home, or maybe it was our cat. I did not bother going down to check. A few minutes later, out of nowhere, Jay said, "Mark, I think your brother is sneaking up behind you." I spun around but did not see anyone there. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He said he had just seen someone peeking around the wall behind me. To explain the setup, my bedroom is a loft with a half wall that separates the staircase from the main part of the room. Jay claimed he saw my brother's face quickly appear from behind that wall. I called my brother's name. No response. I walked over and looked down the stairs. No one was there. At first, I thought Jay might be messing with me, so I asked him again if he was serious. He insisted he was not joking. That was when I decided to check the rest of the upstairs. I looked in my brother's room first. The lights were off and the door was closed, which made me think he might not even be home yet. I checked my parents' room next. Then the spare bedroom. Nothing. Everything looked normal. The front door was still shut and locked. At that point, I figured Jay either imagined it or was trying to scare me. Then I noticed our cat Sunshine was nowhere to be found. I thought maybe she had been the one making noise earlier. I went downstairs to the den and found her crouched in the corner behind the sectional couch. That was strange for her. She is usually calm, not hiding like that. It made my stomach tighten. Then I heard something. When you are in a silent room with someone else, even the smallest movement stands out. The faint sound of fabric brushing against something. I heard that subtle noise coming from behind the sectional in the corner. I stood up slowly and took a single step closer. That was when I heard a quiet exhale. It was soft but clear enough for me to know it was not my imagination. I did not panic or run. I walked upstairs to the kitchen, grabbed the house phone, went into my room, locked the door, and called 911. Jay was still on FaceTime. I kept him connected so he could hear the call with the dispatcher. The police showed up fast. I went downstairs and opened the front door for them. "Where is he?" was the first thing they asked. I told them he was downstairs in the den. The officers moved in quickly, shouting commands as they made their way through the house. I did not see the exact moment it happened, but they pulled a man out from behind the couch with his hands raised. He was in his mid-20s. They found a large knife in his pocket. I do not know what he intended to do with it, and I do not want to think about it. I am just grateful he did not hurt our cat while he was hiding there. Seeing Sunshine scared and tucked away probably made me pause and listen a few seconds longer than I otherwise would have. Being on FaceTime with Jay may have saved me too. I think the guy either saw or heard that I was talking to someone and realized he was not alone with me. The fact that he stayed hidden in the den instead of leaving makes me believe he was waiting for everyone in the house to fall asleep. Looking back, I realized I had forgotten to lock the door when I came back from dropping off my brother. I used to be careless about that because we live in what people call a safe neighborhood, but nowhere is truly safe. My family was shocked when they heard what happened, but they were also proud of how I handled it. The intruder's name was Richard Taylor, and he ended up being sentenced to 7 years in prison.